Welcome to the SHN Sports High School Gridiron Podcast, showcasing Central Texas high school football. And now, here's your host, Rob Hipp. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to week number 2 of the SHN Sports High School Gridiron Podcast. I'm Rob Hipp, along with Chuck Kracy from Leander, and our special guest tonight from KVUE Television, Shawn Clinch. Shawn, good to have you in the house, man. We're honored to have you, and Chuck, great to have you back this week, guys.
Hey, I'm honored to be with you guys. No doubt. This is a big-time royal company right here.
Well, Shawn,
with Shawn, that's true, maybe.
Well, Shawn, we had you on, Shawn, with the SHN last year in the Coaches Show, and, man, we really enjoyed the interview, so wanted to bring you back here for our Week 2 podcast. A little easier, too, man, so you don't have to get out and travel all the way to Georgetown. You know how that traffic is.
Georgetown. That was a good burger, by the way.
Hey, awesome, man. Well, gentlemen, we wanted to talk, this SHN Gridiron High School Gridiron podcast covers the Austin teams, and tonight we're just going to go ahead and dig right in. Again, wanted to thank Shawn Clinch, Chuck Kracy for being here for this week number 2 podcast. A lot of excitement in high school football in week 1. Of course, that week 1 only just opening up play. So think of those first 2 games for a lot of teams basically as preseason. They kind of give the coaches an idea of what to look for and what to catch out. But we'll jump right into it here. A lot of folks, of course, naming Cedar Park, no surprise there, as the number 1 team in Central Texas. Well, last week they lost to Waco Midway 35-28. Back in 2016, Cedar Park 12-1, 8-0 in 19-5A. Coached by Carl Aspect, they won the district, finished in a top 16, but then lost to Manville 47-35. And Manville, of course, lost that next round to Temple. Shawn, how do you feel? Cedar Park, a lot of the statistics, a lot of the rankings showing them as number 1. What did you take out of that? Do you agree with that number 1 ranking, first of all? And what did you take out of that first game here at Waco Midway? Should we worry about the loss?
No. I just think, first of all, I respect any program of that nature to schedule against another premier program like Waco Midway. The reason why I think Cedar Park is deserving is because you can't tell by the score, but they have a pretty salty and defense. You look at the score, 35-28, that they lost to Midway, and I think that skews the fact that Cedar Park's level of defense is much better than that. They have the quarterback, which I think is one of the most overlooked quarterbacks maybe in the state, Max Sexton. He's now 28-2 as a starter and no significant looks yet. But the thing about Carl Absek and that staff, they're very consistent with that Black Rain defense that everyone's become accustomed to know about now because they've been very consistent. And I think we'll see these guys bounce back. I mean, I don't put much stock in these pre-district games as much as some people.
Chuck, you want to chime in? I know there's Cedar Park not over there in 25 6A with Leander. Your thoughts on Cedar Park?
Well, and I'm actually familiar with both of those schools as I graduated from Waco Midway. So part of me was rooting for Waco Midway to pull that off. And what I would still consider an upset despite them both being premium programs, Midway 6A, Cedar Park 5A, schools like that, the 5 and the 6A, you can kind of throw that out the window. And Midway is a solid program. They came and took a loss from Cedar Park last year at home. Their quarterback was hurt last year. They were loaded, fully healthy this year. And so just the fact that Cedar Park continued to battle and come back in that game, because Midway was up by a couple of scores there, and Cedar Park just would not lay down. And it's attributed to, I think, that staff and the program that they built there. And not to toot Leander's horn, but Leander was able to steal away one of those coaches that are trying to do something similar here in Leander with Coach Smith. So I'm hoping that same blueprint works out here as well.
Well, Shawn, talking about Max Sexton, a quarterback that doesn't really get to see a lot of that credit, but this year I think we'll see a lot out of him as well. Again, great job by Carl Absek there in Cedar Park. Well, moving right along here, Lake Travis. Some people may say, oh, man, what a stunner as they lost to Converse Judson 65-45. Well, guess what? Their only loss
Not
last
so
year.
fast.
I was about to say. Guess what? Their only loss last year came to the same team. And so that game last week, Lake Travis losing to Converse Judson again for their opening of the 2017 season, 65-45. Of course, back in 2016, Lake Travis 15-1. That one loss came versus Converse Judson. They finished 6-0 in 25 6A. Of course, Coach Hank Harder, the legend, always doing great job out there at Lake Travis. They lost to Judson, of course, last year, 35-28 at home. Their only loss of the season. But again, as Shawn said, a lot of these games you can take some things away, but when it comes to Lake Travis, I mean, they went on to win the state championship and just pounded the Woodlands 41-6. Shawn, your thoughts on Lake Travis this season? Who should we be looking out for there in the Cavs uniform?
They have a new quarterback this year. They lost a considerable amount of that state championship team, big-time leaders, talents. When you break in a new quarterback against a premier opponent like Judson, it could get bad in a hurry. But I'll tell you one thing that I look at this game. I did not think that they would give up 65, much less be down, have the deficit that Lake Travis was in as early as they were. Because I know I came back in from I went to Gerald this past Friday, and I came back to the office, and they were down by, I want to say 28 points maybe in the third quarter. I was shocked by that. But I think this is going to be a team which develops week by week because they have sprinkled in some new starters, so to speak. But I think we all know Lake Travis is not really a rebuilding program. They reload, so to speak, with play. The only thing that concerns me about that is the score. They're giving up 65 points. Judson's – it's amazing how long that they have been on top of the Texas high school football program, the list as the premier programs. I want to say 30 years maybe.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Well, Chuck, quick thoughts on Lake Travis.
Well, I look at that, and I didn't verify this, but one of the articles I read said that there were 825 total yards and 74 points total in the first half of that ball game. And so, Judson is one of those teams. They're going to be explosive. They're going to have speed at all the skill positions. And, the thing that surprised me more than anything is the 65 points that Lake Travis gave up. They're traditionally very good defensively. And I don't really expect this is more of an aberration than an indicator of what we'll expect over the season, because I agree with Shawn. I think this is a team that's going to have to find its identity. It's not already there. Granted, they're still Lake Travis and they have that to hang their hat on, but as an individual team and as individual units, these guys, that coaching staff is too good to let that not develop into something quality and probably make a good 2, 3, 4 round run there in the playoffs.
Well, continuing the chat here and keeping it in 25-6A, the Austin American Statesman had Westlake in the 4th spot opening up this season. And you got to talk about it, 25-6A, Lake Travis, Westlake. You've got Vandergrift, Hayes, Vista Ridge, Lehman, and Leander, arguably the toughest district in the state of Texas. But again, Westlake, the third team we're talking about tonight here, getting the first win in the teams that we're talking about. They defeated College Station 35-28. Well, back in 2016, Westlake 11-3 overall. They were 5-1 in 25-6A. Great job, as always, by Coach Todd Dodge. They finished second behind Lake Travis, and as I just said, arguably the toughest district in the state. But last year, just a tough loss, 51-3, as the final 8 teams in the playoff versus Lake Travis. What a rivalry game, and Lake Travis said, hey, baby, this is our town, and Lake Travis put the stomping on them. And, of course, they went on to defeat – Lake Travis did. The Cavs went on to defeat the Woodlands for the state championship. Shawn, your take, the Chaparrals, always a tough team. I had to quit football in 9th grade because I weighed about 90 pounds, and I didn't want to go up against Westlake. And Westlake always had our number, man. So, and Georgetown is not in that district anymore, but your thoughts on Westlake this season, what should we see? Maybe some key players that we should keep our eyes on.
Well, first and foremost, the running back, big, bad Nakia Watson. I don't remember the exact total, but I'm pretty sure he had a 200-plus yard performance against College Station.
He had a 77-yard run in the second half for a touchdown.
That's unbelievable. He's going to Wisconsin, so he'll fit right in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
that big body. This was one of those Hurricane Harvey affected games where they would start off with Katy, and I'm glad to see that they scheduled another game. College Station is known as that other program in Bryan College Station, but Coach Huff over there at College Station, I covered him when I was in Oklahoma City. He was at that State Power there, Midwest City, and he's the guy that's all about defense. And so, having said that, for Westlake to have put up 35 points when we don't know a lot about their quarterback situation, because Sam Ehlinger, you can only play 4 years, 3 years usually as a starter. That era is over. So the big key for Westlake, defense this year. They have a very sound defensive line that I think many of us who are football purists will enjoy watching if you get an opportunity to see Westlake. I think the offense is still one of those things that's going to develop because I really haven't seen much outside of Nakia Watson to speak on Westlake's offense. But to me, to put up 35 points on that College Station defense says something to me. And I do think Westlake is going to surprise some people, but it all comes down to Westlake, Lake Travis later this year.
Sure.
Well, Chuck, your thoughts on Westlake, man? They're in your district,
college...
Chuck. They're in your backyard, Chuck.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to say is that College Station team, the other team from College Station, is ranked number 9 in the state for 5A. So, I mean, they're no slouch. And the fact that Westlake is able to schedule them as just a last moment kind of signing, they were supposed to play C.E. King. And, of course, that being in Houston, they couldn't play. And so they're fortunate to play each other. So you just have to eliminate all scouting and you just go base offense, base defense versus a top 10 ranked 5A school and come out on top is pretty impressive for Westlake. And it is going to be about the running game. It is going to be about their defense. But watch for Taylor Anderson to have a pretty good year. He was 13 of 21, I think 160 yards or something in that game versus College Station. Gets a pretty good defense. So it makes it a lot easier to pass when you can turn around and hand to Nakia Watson a couple of times a series. But that play action sure does become a lot more effective. So I'm in agreement with Shawn as well on this. I think they're a lot like Lake Travis in that they have the talent and they have the coaching, and it's just finding their identity. Traditionally they're powerful teams, but for a team like Leander or Vista Ridge or Vandergrift, even Hayes or especially Hayes, you're looking at those two teams and you are kind of licking your chops a little bit. It's not the same Lake Travis, the same Westlake that would traditionally come here. Now you're not going to think they're any kind of slouch or anything, but Mellinger on Westlake, and Lake Travis lost their quarterback. Now they do have Garrett Wilson still, but they'll be fine. Both of those teams reload, but it is going to be something that hopefully, if we're from a Leander perspective, the wheels are coming apart by week 4 at district play, but I don't really see that for either of those teams.
Well, good feedback there on Westlake. The Chaparrals wishing them a good season as well. As we move on here, a lot of polls picked Round Rock in the top 5 in that 5th position. They lost their opener. Round Rock lost to Schertz Clemens 26-17 last year. Round Rock, a ferocious season under Jeff Cheatham. Of course, Coach Cheatham in his 7th year now from Salado. Last year in 2016, 10-4 overall, but boy, they ran it in district, 5-1 and 13-6A. They finished second behind Cedar Ridge, I believe, who went 6-0, winning that district. Round Rock, though, finishing in the top 8, they eventually lost to 41-18 to the Woodlands, who went on to the state championship and lost to Lake Travis 41-6. I had the pleasure of working with Round Rock for a few years, many years ago. Got to know Coach Cheatham. Great things coming out of that Round Rock community. Shawn, the Dragons, will they be huffing and puffing, or will they be blowing smoke this year?
I trust Coach Cheatham, and I commend them as well for scheduling quality opponent in a season opener like that. For out of this little trio on this podcast, Schertz Clemens, give a backstory on those guys. When San Antonio really had in their heyday of high school football with San Antonio Clark, John Jay, even Alamo Heights back then, and of course Converse Judson, Schertz Clemens was one of those San Antonio powers, and they've been fairly consistent throughout the years. And for Round Rock to play them, I just love seeing these quality matchups in week one, opposed to, hey, let's schedule something short of a bye week.
Yeah.
I think Round Rock, the thing is, they've had a large offensive line, and I think in our visit over there, they felt good about their chances. They'll definitely be a playoff team this year. I just think that there's some I don't know what exactly it is, which not rebuilding, but they're tooling with, so to speak. But they have some big bodies in that offensive line, which I think are developing for this year's group. But I don't think this loss really means anything. I think the 17 points scored, only 17 points, was a little alarming for week one in Round Rock. But Coach Cheatham, he'll figure out a way to crank up the points per game average somehow.
Well, Chuck chiming in, I talked about the Dragons, and I don't want to upset anybody because the Dragons never blow smoke, man. This is a team that has been just a great team. Georgetown back in the day used to play them. Chuck, your thoughts on Round Rock this season?
Well, Round Rock is a traditional power, and that district, for as much credit as 25-6A gets, that district is a really tough district that they're in. They have Canyon Ridge, Stony Point. You got a lot of powerful teams in that district, so they're going to have their work cut out for them. That district did all right when the realignment occurred and they lost Westlake. But I haven't spent enough time studying Round Rock to give too much of an opinion on the Dragons. We play Westwood, we play Stony Point, we play Pflugerville. So I've been focused on those 14 6A schools a little more than Round Rock.
Hey, well, no problem. Well, shout out to Coach Jeff Cheatham. Good luck on this season. Looking forward to seeing more of the Dragons as we move on here. Two final teams to talk about in the Austin area. Some of the rankings had Dripping Springs in the 7th spot. I know the Statesmen had them there at number 7. They won their opener, defeating Bastrop 21-55. Just putting on a clinic there over Bastrop. Last year, Dripping Springs, an impressive season, 12-2. I think the Tigers went under the radar quite a bit. Again, finishing 12-2, 6-1 in 26-5A. And they finished at the top alongside other teams such as Bernie Champion, Alamo Heights, finishing in the top 8, losing to Foster 51-28. And then Foster, of course, went on to lose to the Wildcats 31-24. And Highland Park defeating Temple 16-7, of course, for that championship. Man, that's that. I don't know what. There was a movie with Matthew McConaughey, and he's like, home of the Bearcats. That's where that comes from, Sean. That's where it comes from, Sean. So, anyways,
I
man.
like that. I wish you'd do it again.
Oh, home of the Bearcats.
Work on it a little bit, maybe.
Well, let's talk about Dripping Springs, Sean. I know friends down there close to Austin, great community. What are your thoughts on Dripping Springs this year?
Well, first and foremost, the short time I've been back in Austin, one thing that I have been just astounded by has been the commitment to athletics overall in Dripping Springs.
That's true.
I haven't seen it yet, but the new facility Dripping Springs has, I haven't seen it yet, but you notice the commitment to football over the last 4 years. What happened last year was not a fluke. It's not. The numbers over there, excuse me, allergies, apologize. Dripping Springs, the numbers in their football program they have increased significantly just over the past 3 years. That win over Bastrop, it didn't shock me. It's by the point differential. Galen Zimmerman, the head coach there, he is building off of what was established previously, and he's taking it to another level. Dripping Springs, I'm not going to say that they're going to make a similar run to last year, but they're definitely going to be in the mix for a playoff run or in the playoff race in that district. That doesn't shock me. You remember, what was it, Georgetown last year? What was their record? 7-3 and barely got in the playoffs?
Yeah, barely got in and, defeating Rouse and then lost that opener, which was heartbreaking. Okay. So
that's what could probably happen with Dripping Springs. A good team, a really good team may be left out, but I still see the ascension of this Dripping Springs football program continuing this year, because I really need to really go out there and visit and get to know these guys they have in their program. I just know from the outside, I've been very impressed in the growth of that football program alone and the support.
Well, I think too, and if I'm not mistaken, Coach Joe McBride over there at Dripping Springs came in there 3 years ago? Is that correct? And replaced Bob Schultz after 7 years. And boy, Coach McBride doing a wonderful thing down there in Dripping Springs, bringing some of that sweet water down there to Dripping Springs, man. That crystal clear sweet water. Well, hey, Chuck, your thoughts down there. I don't know if you follow Drip too much, but your thoughts on our friends down
they
in
were
Dripping
in our
Springs.
district a couple of years ago. In fact, they were the reason the Lions didn't make the playoffs a couple of years ago when we upset Georgetown. We went down there and lost to Dripping Springs by 2 points. In fact, the Lions have missed the playoffs by 2 points 2 years consecutively. Speaking of their facility, they were still in that old facility. And that was a 3A press box, 3A field. Now, they had a heck of a barbecue pit there, but we couldn't even do our broadcast because the press box was so small and it was raining. So, I have a lot of respect for Dripping Springs. Like Shawn said, they get a lot of support, and that support starts when the kids are real young. That's one of the cool things about a Dripping Springs or a Leander or Cedar Park or Georgetown, where it's the main school is the area, that town. They all go on Friday night to see the team play, and they all from a young age want to be Dripping Springs Tigers or Leander Lions or whatever. And so I think you see that's really paying off there. A lot of people are moving there. It is a nice area of town or south of town, but you can see that they're going to make an impact in all the sports. They've been pretty good in volleyball. They were real good in baseball too. So it's a heck of a school district.
Yes, it is. I just, you look at them across the board. They're so competitive in every sport, and that community's dynamics has changed drastically just in the last 5 to 10 years. I mean, it's Hill Country is a place to be. I mean, if you like wine, of course, but
barbecue. They have vodka there too. Now.
Come on, now. They have Dripping Springs. I've had it.
Yeah,
before.
It's Dripping Springs vodka. Yeah,
there you go.
Any rumors you guys hear about me over there, they're not true.
They're false.
We'll keep those on the DL, Shawn. Well, as we move along here, gentlemen, shout out to Dripping Springs as well. Good luck on this upcoming season. Congratulations on that big victory over Bastrop. And we're hoping for the best down there in Drip as well. Well, finally here covering tonight throughout the Austin area in the 10th spot, ranked number 10 by the Statesman and other polls out there coming into the season, our friends over at LBJ defeating Waco University 45-7 back in 2016, 9-2. They were top of the game in 25-5A, winning the district. McCallum right behind them at 5-1. But, talking about LBJ, you talked about Dripping Springs, may have a good season, but then watch out early in the playoffs. Well, same thing happened to LBJ as they had that surprising early exit in the playoffs, losing to Alamo Heights in the first round, 21-10. Alamo Heights went on to lose that second round to Foster, 55-27. Well, talking about LBJ, Shawn, I know right there in your back door in the heart of Austin, your thoughts on LBJ this year there over in AISD. Of course, also an SHN team on Thursday nights that we cover the AISD games. So what are your thoughts on LBJ, Shawn?
Well, my thoughts, they begin with Andrew Jackson, the head coach. He and his brother Sad have been very good friends to this football community, but very good friends to us here at KVUE with Mike Barnes and I and Stacy Slayton. Andrew's has stage 4 esophageal cancer, and he continues to coach. And this is an inspired team, and it's not that LBJ needs any more inspiration. They're really good, but when you bring up LBJ, and I'm sorry if I pause, it's just we continue to pray and support this man and his family and that program and those young men, and the LBJ community is a significant one, very spirited. But he has inspired this program, those Jaguars, and that win against Waco University did not shock me one bit. Maybe the point differential, again, 45-7, but if they're beating a team like Waco University like that this early, I think LBJ is going to make a solid run. I mean, it's LBJ and McCallum, and Austin's trying to join that crew, but it's going to boil down to LBJ and McCallum, and the true champion here it's got to be Andrew Jackson. He continues to do what he loves and passionate about it. And who knows, man? I believe in miracles, and I think we may find him in remission soon. We hope and pray that's the case.
Well, you talk about Coach Jackson there, Andrew Jackson, thoughts and prayers with him. And Rick Cantu, in one of his headlines, he called it a continuation of the ministry of coaching. And I think there's
like
not a more fitting word for what's going on there. Chuck, your thoughts down in Austin over at LBJ?
Well, LBJ, McCallum, both speedy skill position teams, and they both improved really over the last few years. Those Austin teams for a long time had a rough time. They rarely even made the playoffs for it seemed like over a decade. They've shown up in the last couple of years, McCallum, LBJ, and to continue. I was unaware of the Coach Jackson having cancer. And that's it's sad, but it really is reflective of the sport of football and the family that it creates in the community and the brotherhood, the camaraderie. I'm not surprised at all that a community is rallying around their head coach, and the inspiration that can be gained from a battle like that is it's just the value is immeasurable. So. When you got a team that has a reason to fight and they see that their leadership is battling something greater than anything they'll face, then, it makes it a lot easier for them to get motivated, and it don't matter who they're facing across the field. And University, that school, I'm from Waco. I went to Midway. We played University every year, and that team is stacked talent-wise every year. LaDainian Tomlinson went there a few years after me, but that's the kind of talent that comes through University, and so they're not a slouch. They don't have a whole lot of great years, and they're not a deep school as far as having a deep pool of talent. But you don't just go beat them like that. Especially LBJ this early in the season. I agree with Shawn there. They're obviously motivated to be successful and build on what they've done over the last couple of years. And the additional motivation is just that's scary for anybody who has to face them.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly.
Well, gentlemen, that's kind of your rundown of some of the top teams in the Austin area. Looking back, the big winners from week one. Of course, we can't make much out of it. It's week one. It's kind of the preseason, the first two games. But the big winners over in 14-6A, they went 5-1. The only team losing last week was Anderson versus McCallum. They're at the Taco Shack Bowl. They lost 28-48. If we kind of move around the list here, coming in second, 13-6A finished at 4-3. McNeil getting a win at Austin High, Stony Point at Killeen, Westwood at Lehman. I covered that game on SHN, and then Cedar Ridge versus Canyon out of New Braunfels.
I'll keep waiting until we get to 25-6A because it was bad.
25, and that's where I was at next. 25-6A finishing at 3-4. So they're right in the middle, though, actually, not at the bottom for last week. Lake Travis, Vandergrift both losing. Lake Travis, of course, at Converse Judd, and Vandergrift at Odessa Permian. That was a big one. And then Westlake, the winners over College Station. Hayes winning over Eastview Vista Ridge, defeating San Antonio Southwest. The two losses, Lehman at Westwood, that was a big one, 13-63, and then Leander 32-14. And Chuck Kracy, of course, over there at Leander. And if we continue to move down the bottom two, for that first week, 19-5A going 3-6. Losses for Bastrop at Dripping Springs, 55-21. Cedar Creek at Marble, Cedar Park at Midway, Elgin versus Harker Heights. Georgetown defeated Fort Worth Brewer there at Waco Midway. Beautiful facility, Chuck, up there at Panther Stadium in Waco.
Yeah, it's nice.
36-20. Eastview losing at Hayes, 36-48. Hutto, big winners over Bryan, 54-14. They'll play Brian Rudder next week.
Yeah, that's going to be a good football team right there. You watch out for Hutto.
Hutto is really good.
Matt and I
they're going to be good.
Matt and I have been talking for a while, and we don't say this, rudely, but those hippos have been waiting to come out of the water. And, man, this is going to be a season that I think they're going to do it. And, of course, Rouse falling to Manor, Connolly at Lockhart. And then 25-5A there in Austin, only going 2-5. LBJ winning at Waco University. Travis dropping a huge one there at Seguin. Boy, the Seguin just all over them, 74-6. And, out of all these scores, though, across the Austin area, at least in these districts, 19-5A, 25-5A, 13-6A, 14-6A, and 25-6A, only one shutout. And that was Reagan versus Burnett, if you can believe that. 30-0. The Bulldogs on Highway 29 cruising down and just putting a whooping on 30-0. So, a lot of games coming up next week. Of course, these I believe none of these district games as well. It's kind of the second part of the preseason. So we'll see what we can happen. A big matchup I know that's going to be taking place next week. Cedar Park is going to be at Vandergrift, so that'll be a good one. We'll see what things are going on.
Always a rivalry game between those two schools.
Absolutely.
Well, and then also, and correct me on this, you may have more information on this, Shawn. Westlake versus Niceville, Florida. We got a team from Florida.
Yeah.
Can you talk? How does that happen?
I think that's where Tim Tebow played.
Okay.
I maybe someone can correct me on this, but Niceville. I think it's Niceville.
Niceville.
But anyway, they're one. If you guys remember the old power like Shreveport Evangel, they're a program like that, and the Hoover, Alabama, stuff like that.
So they travel around because the teams in their state aren't quite good enough for them.
Yeah, or in their little region, because we always got to hear about Florida being a speed state. Well, why don't you play somebody in Florida? But they're one of those premier national high school programs that will schedule games. I know when I worked in East Texas a long time ago, Lufkin would play Evangel. They would play, I forgot, there was another program from Arkansas, which was really good. And
wow.
I like these interstate type games, because you hear about.
I think Denton Ryan's played a team from Oklahoma before a couple of times. So
and Union. DeSoto played Douglas out of Oklahoma City. It's fun, It really proves who has the best football.
Absolutely.
It gives a little bit of bragging rights too, even if we lose to one of those teams for that team. They love it when they get to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we always get to play a California school. There's somebody from Texas generally always playing a California school.
Yeah.
I think it was Trinity last year that beat Mater D or somebody like that early in the year. So.
Well, Chuck, as we wind down here, I appreciate you guys being on the podcast. Chuck, wanted to give you an opportunity real quick. If you got any questions for Shawn Clinch, it's not common that we get to speak to great folks. And I don't want to say that the wrong way. We get to speak to a lot of great folks, but folks in the media down there in Austin, because you guys are so busy, Shawn, and you don't know how much we appreciate you taking time out of your extremely busy schedule there doing the sports for KVUE alongside Mike Barnes. But, Chuck, any last question for Shawn Clinch?
I just want to put him on the spot and make him pick between Pflugerville and Leander for this Thursday night at Bible.
I love both coaches, and we have such good relationships with all the coaches.
And they're good friends with each other too. So
Herman's a character now. He walks in a room and he will work it. Ken Smith, don't turn your back on him. He'll have some prank to go. He's good. He's good for that Leander program, that entire staff. I
agree.
It's really hard for me to pick. But for some reason, I have no significant reason why I'm going to pick Leander to win this game.
All right.
But you're going to pick them only because you're on the phone with their play-by-play and PA person.
I'm trying to block you out of the situation here.
Well, hey, Shawn.
That's an understandable answer. It's political, but.
Well, Shawn, again, I just wanted to say thanks for being on the podcast tonight. It's just our honor and privilege to have you. And, guys, before we go, I did want to send a special shout-out to our friends down in Southeast Texas, not only the Houston area, but all those counties affected. Our thoughts and prayers remain with those individuals in those communities. They still need a lot of help. I know a lot of churches, a lot of volunteers, organizations of everything you can think of pouring their resources down there into the Gulf Coast. And so our thoughts and prayers remain with the families down there and the folks that need help. If you would like to donate to a reputable charity, visit guidestar.org. That's guidestar.org. You can find more information there, or your local churches, of course. And also, guys, wanted to say, tropical storm, Hurricane Irma may be making a beeline for Florida. So our thoughts and prayers are going to be with the folks in Florida as well.
Category 5.
Well, Shawn, wanted to give you a final thought here. Anything you'd like to say before we sign off, man? It's been an honor and a privilege, and I may have to ask you to come to a coach's show again this season. We'll see what your schedule's like, man.
I'll buy you dinner.
All right, man.
Well, you got to bring Chuck You know, I ask you guys, have you guys seen the new Pflugerville ISD, the field?
I have not. We had
not.
a crew down there last week covering a game, the Bowie Pflugerville game, but I was not down there.
It's top notch. And then be sure if you guys visit, and I hope he's listening. Todd Raymond, the athletic director of Pflugerville ISD, used to be the McCallum coach and Lehman coach. And he and I played against each other. He was at Anderson. I mean, I was at Anderson. He was at McCallum. So he asked him to make sure when you see him to please get up off your desk and remove your feet from the desk, because he has a window that overlooks the stadium at the
He spends all his time looking at that.
He's a facilities coordinator. He needs to be working, not with his feet up on.
We'll clip this and share it on
I
Twitter
thought that's
with
what
him.
they did.
It's beautiful. I mean, it's if you look at it, and even the press box facility for us media types, it's phenomenal. But I will say this in closing: it was my honor to be on here with you guys, and you both do such wonderful jobs for the high school community. And Rob, I'm proud to watch your company and your business endeavors grow as they have.
Well, hey, I appreciate it, Shawn, and proud for your friendship, man. I really appreciate all that you do throughout the Central Texas area. I know you and Mike Barnes over there, and y'all staff at KVUE is phenomenal. And you're friends of SHN, and I consider you a friend, Shawn, and just unbelievable folks throughout the Austin area. So, again, we appreciate it. Shawn Clinch from KVUE, everyone. Wanted to say thanks again to Shawn. Chuck Kracy, thanks for joining us, my man, and looking forward to next week. It's going to be good, and then after that, it's week 3 when the real gridiron starts. So we'll see what happens.
That's real football.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for joining us. We'll catch you next time. This has been week 2 of the SHN High School Gridiron Podcast here on SHN Sports.